Hey everybody, welcome to DBC Pod, episode 4 of Loki. What an amazing episode, Phil.
Yes, definitely a big episode. Cannot complain that things didn't happen.
No, I mean, we were just chatting right before we hit record that this is an episode where like it was mostly dialogue, and I think those are the best episodes when Mobius and Loki are just going back and forth because I mean, like the action is fun, but I, I mean, typically for like these Marvel movies, you want to see things like happening.
Hmm.
And I guess the best way to tell a story when it's all time travel is to just sit down and listen. And that's what we got this episode. But a lot was revealed, which was really cool. And I dig it. So I've got, I don't know, with the space in between, I have like 100 lines in my text editor of notes. You said you did not take any notes your first viewing today, but you took them towards the end.
Yeah.
So how many pages do you have?
In my little notebook, I have about 6 pages. I think 5-6 pages.
I think compared to like episode 2, you had
Like
5-ish
4,
pages.
but yeah.
Yes.
But last episode I only had like 2, so definitely more this time than last.
Yeah. So going into this episode, I was expecting like interesting things, right? So Hiddleston had a mention. There was on Scott Gustin quoted him on Twitter earlier, and I'll put that up now. This series takes off in a new direction in episode 4. Buckle up because we're going somewhere. I hope you don't see it coming. Did you see it coming, Phil?
I saw parts of it coming,
Okay.
but other parts, no. I definitely was shocked by a few things.
Yeah, so let's get it. So the only way I can take notes, typically, like when something big happens, I make note of it. That's interesting to kind of talk about. There was kind of so much going on. My notes are basically a guide to the episode. Like I just basically said, here's a summary. So I have like talking points that we can kind of talk through it. So let's start at the beginning. And it starts off like, we're getting ready. We got the trailer going, right? We had a midweek trailer. When did that come out on? Monday, I think?
I think so, yep.
Getting us ready for tonight. And, Loki was fighting. Loki is rescued. There's nuclear explosions or something that looks like that. Ships drop out of the sky. And I think that the only thing we didn't get was the ship that was falling out of the sky from the trailer.
Right.
I think every other scene was in the trailer that was in episode 4. So in the grand scheme of things, it looks like that episode 3 was more of a palate cleanser. What do you think?
Well, it was, and to really introduce Sylvie and let us get to know her and sort of build up the relationship between Loki and Sylvie, because obviously that becomes the crux of sort of shifting everything, right? Is their connection and their relationship. So you had to kind of get to know her and believe her as a believable character. And so I think that was the goal of episode 3. But obviously that was really just kind of setting the stage for everything going down in this episode.
We got a glance at a lot of action, and like we said at the top, we didn't get a lot of that. So episode 4 starts. We start seeing where Sylvie gets pruned or apprehended.
Yes.
I like how she was playing like a little Viking ship. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, and she was the Valkyrie defeating the dragon, which was a nice touch.
So I thought we were going to get a little bit of touch on Sylvie's background. We didn't get much at the beginning, right? We learned a little bit more later on. It was more dialogue. Nothing surprising.
It just kind of goes to show, though, that like the TVA just shows up and kidnaps, arrests a kid, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah. I mean,
and they're like, "You're under arrest," and the kid's like, "What is going on?" Like, I mean, and they don't care. They're just like going through the whole process thing, the same process that Loki went through when he was arrested, and it didn't matter that she's like 7 or whatever, you know. So that was kind of stark and pretty severe what they did.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the things I was wondering, and this is one of the final questions of the episode, is how does this little girl create a Nexus event? Right? Because she's just sitting there. She's 10, 9. I don't know how old she was, but she doesn't have any, Infinity Stones, so she's not doing anything. And I think we got an answer later on, which we'll get to. But what was kind of cool was Rensselaer was the agent that
arrested her,
grabbed her.
Yeah.
So she was an agent before she was a judge, which kind of goes to the interest of like how everybody's talking about the comic kind of connection, where it's mostly like she's the girlfriend or lover of Kang and all this other stuff. So if she was kind of in on the whole thing, why is she just like a lowly agent? But
Yeah.
maybe she wasn't. Maybe we'll learn differently later on. Who knows?
Or
But
she was
that's the
just
one thing that kind
promoted, or who knows? But yeah, something happened where she was the hunter that went there, and then later becomes a judge.
now, should we take any read into anything that the only people that have actual names in TVA are Mobius and Rensselaer?
Well, I think it just goes to show your number, right? I mean, what we learned for clearly, we found out at the end of last episode is that everybody's a variant. So they come in and they're
Right.
basically just given a number. We're not quite sure what those numbers mean. They usually start with a letter and then a number like C20 or B15 or whatever. I think it just goes to show that they've kind of stripped them of their humanity and
But
uniqueness.
Mobius doesn't have a number though,
Right.
and Rensselaer doesn't have a number, and those are the only two people I think in the TVA, other than the quote unquote timekeepers,
Yeah.
that have no. I'm just like because that
Yeah. I mean, unless
that
it's
stands
that
out to me.
it's other than Mobius and Renslayer, we only know hunters, and maybe the hunters get numbers, and then maybe there
Maybe
are other agents like Mobius that have a name. I don't know.
I guess we don't know enough of all the other
Yeah.
people if everybody has numbers and stuff like that. So next, the episode goes to the title intro, which I love, and then you see Renslayer kind of coming out of a meeting with the timekeepers, and we're like,
Yep.
oh, the timekeepers, that's great. It's a first glimpse, right? And we're kind
Yeah.
of getting
So there was something
stoked.
in that room. We didn't even know if there was like anything for real, but there clearly are
There's things
timekeepers in
there.
that room. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So they have a conversation. C20's mumble. She says, "Well, C20 was just mumbling at the end, blah blah blah," and we had to wipe her mind, scrambled her mind. I think was the word that they used.
She said her mind was scrambled, and that she tells Mobius that she died because
Yep.
Mobius wants to talk to her and say, "Wait, what was going on?" She was saying it was real. It was real. I think that might be important in trying to track down the variants. But Renslayer says you can't talk to her because she died.
Yep. So we're looking at a bunch of stuff, and we're like, okay, so Mobius kind of thinks about that's kind of strange. I should be able to talk to her. But
Yep.
anyway, we move on. She goes and she walks away. Says we're all in danger.
Yep.
And what kind of we last left, I guess 2 episodes ago, where Sylvie just basically throws up the bomb and creates like 20 different Nexus events randomly on the timeline, right? And we see the sacred timeline a couple times, and they're not. It doesn't seem like anybody's panicking. So to me, it's like, did they just go and quickly just clean it all up? But it was not a big deal. It seems like that was only a distraction and not like a plan to create an actual multiverse.
Yeah, it's a good point. It did seem when they showed that one screen, it looked like it was kind of
It was
back
flat,
to
right?
the line. So yeah, either they cleaned it up, or at least they're pretending it's cleaned up, or I
Yeah.
don't know what happened. But yeah, yeah, that's an interesting point.
So I'm thinking like we've been, or a lot of people have been speculating. Okay, this is where the multiverse is born. There's just too much for the TVA to clean up, but apparently they've got 20 teams that can just go there, drop a bomb, and bounce, and everything's good, right? So it's just I guess it's just now it's just a distraction.
It was maybe, yeah, I
And
guess for her to get in there and try to get to the timekeepers, and then when that was stopped, they were able to
yep.
kind of fix the issue.
So now the multiverse is not a thing yet, and we don't even have to go around down that line of speculation. So they go, and then we have I believe it cuts to Loki and Sylvie sitting on the Death Planet, and
Momentous
they're
one,
ready to
yeah.
die. Yep, and got a brief conversation about her remembering Asgard. So now she knows that we kind of get a little bit of sense of where she was from. She remembers, so she was actually a Loki. She wasn't just kind of a fake Loki or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She was in Asgard, or princess, or whatever you want to call her. And she remembers everything. And she muttered something or said something that I thought was incredibly interesting. And it was basically, I wrote down here on a quote. The universe wants to break free, so it manifests chaos in the form of the god of mischief, right?
Yep.
So I'm taking that as you don't need to have a Nexus event that's like a catastrophe or an Infinity Stone. It's the universe itself, to quote somebody amazing, finds a way.
Right.
Right. So nature finds a way. And is the universe just spawning like Nexus events just to try to break free? And the unnatural state of things is timekeepers keeping the sacred timeline. That's unnatural.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean, what they want to keep is the keep it straight, and they symbolized by all the wheels of tape that it's circular and that things
Hmm.
could just go around and nothing changes. But it is that chaos that causes change, but more importantly, causes growth in people. And that if you go back to Greek mythology, that was Loki's role,
Yep.
was to sort of create chaos, and it resulted in the heroes having to kind of grow to become more than what they were and out of their kind of comfort zone. And that's kind of what if you don't have that, you don't have continual growth and evolution. And the universe wants that, but the TVA is trying to prevent that from happening.
So maybe that's the way time kind of works itself out. It
Mm-hmm.
creates multiple timelines, and only the strongest survive, right?
Or something, yeah,
I
maybe.
guess, or something. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. She mentioned that she grew up at the ends of thousands of
Yeah.
worlds. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, how tortured do you have to be as a entity? I'm not gonna say as a person, but as an entity of like a Loki, to be like you just around misery and death and destruction your whole life.
Right. I mean, that's
I mean,
got to
but
warp you a little
I
bit.
guess that maybe that's better why she's a better fighter than Loki, because she had to survive in so many different things. So I guess that answers my question. And I like how this is going to be a theme for the whole episode. Loki says Lokis don't die, or they lose, but they don't die, but they survive.
Right.
And we've seen throughout the MCU where Loki's dead. Even when Thanos crushed his neck, we have a whole show about Loki. So
Yeah.
Lokis don't die, which is true because all of a sudden we
Loki's
see
and
them.
Goonies never die.
That's it exactly. We see them kind of staring at each other a little bit, and we see then in the TVA because they're monitoring for like they're super monitoring for like Nexus events, right?
Yep.
They have like a filter going on, just like your Amazon shopping list. And they see something, a branch, and if you notice, the branch is like almost straight up.
Yeah.
It's racing for that red line, which probably is foreshadowing what's actually going to happen towards the end. And the Lokis are falling in love with each other, which also becomes a bit of a conversation in this episode, which is really cool. And then they get saved. I thought they were tricking each other. I was waiting for Loki to bring out that, oh, by the way, the pad's not broken. So, but thank you
Yeah.
for telling me, type of thing. And that didn't happen. And I'm okay with that. So they get saved. They get brought back in front of the Rensselaer, and they're trying to figure him out. And they get punished behind a red door, which is just basically a time loop where they're getting tortured over and over again from a
Yep.
very, very bad memory. And I'm assuming that's pretty effective. I mean, I think that's better than any other prison where you just sit there by yourself with your thoughts. You're getting tortured endlessly.
Yep.
Um, so, they go through, so it's a punishment time loop, and then Mobius wants to work both Lokis off each other, kind of basically just like any other cop that's arresting two people. And
Yep.
Rensselaer puts a stop to it. So I want to see if you picked up what I was thinking. Also, what did you take from that scene, if anything?
Well, the big thing I took and the punishment that Loki had was that Lady Sif, who we saw in the original Thor and Thor 1 and Thor 2, uh, is mad at him because she cut his hair, which is actually an actual story in Greek mythology. Loki cuts her hair, so that was a nice little tie in there. But keeps having the same conversation over and over again, and he keeps telling her that no one will ever, you'll always be alone. No one will ever be
Mm-hmm.
with you. And I think that's kind of Loki's always his punishment, is that he always feels like he's not worthy of like love. He's just, nobody likes him, so he has to look out for himself. But what we kind of find out was that he did find, for lack of a better word, love with Sylvie, right? And he learned he wasn't alone. There was other Lokis. He's not alone. And that kind of breaks the cycle, right? So the whole
Yep.
cycle was about somebody telling Loki he's alone, but he knows he's not alone now. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, and that it sort of shows how Loki showed growth, which is kind of what we've been, the whole show of this is having that chaos to form growth, and he found growth in this too. So that was sort of the main thing I came out of. But
That's a good take. I mean, I thought that too, but that was not my main take out of
okay.
this. So, and mine's a lot simpler. I should have probably took as much as you did from this. But I saw like Mobius wants to go back to I think he's feeling an internal trigger, like because apparently he's probably a detective or a police officer
Yeah.
in his real life, right? So it's his natural inclination and training to play both off each other, see where the gaps are in their stories. And Rensselaer's, no, you cannot talk to the other Loki. Whether it's based off of maybe a previous experience with Mobius where he screwed up and he doesn't remember that, because obviously there's a memory issue with Mobius. He keeps having to get wiped, I guess. So I thought that was interesting. That was my main take, because Mobius all of a sudden is kind of like, kind of like bringing back old memories. So they're kind of, I'm thinking, okay, things are going to happen. And it was the start to his kind of revolution in his brain.
Yes.
So now there's the interrogation. Oh no, I guess the last segment was Rensselaer. We're talking about, we've brought in Kree's Titans and vampires. I'd like that little line in there. Blades, what, 2024?
Something like that, yeah. So a little tease to that, I guess.
2 or 3 years from now. Where are the vampires in this universe? That's what I want to know. Like, where are they going to come from? Is there anybody talking about that I haven't seen anywhere? Is it basically?
No, I mean everybody has just because they know that Blade's coming, but that's about it. So I don't know if that's plant. People think it's going to be one of the multiverses or what. I don't know, but they've definitely been laying low.
but they've brought them in, so that's going to be interesting. I kind of like that little tidbit here. So Mobius and Loki then sit down and he's trying to interrogate him. There's a lot of lying going back and forth.
Yeah.
I think they both know that they're both lying to each other and nothing's kind of working, except for when Mobius mentions that he pruned Sylvie, and you can actually see a look of devastation on Loki's face. Do you think this is where like a turn was for Mobius, where he started kind of believing a little bit, or was this kind of like
I think so, because I mean, not to jump ahead, but it was after this scene was when he was then with Rensselaer, and he winds up switching the devices. Again, that's jumping ahead, but I think it's because he's at least has some doubt, right? And he knows something's up. He knows something happened with C20, and he just feels like he's not getting the full story from Rensselaer. And so when Loki tells him, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, let's back up a sec before we get to that, because there's 2 other points here. So as soon as Mobius brings Loki back out of the punishment, he's saying, okay, so the TVA is lying to me. Yeah. So he asks him again. So obviously this is something that he's been thinking about, and he wants to get to the bottom of it. And then you have another point where it says, this is a sick, twisted relationship that could really break reality. Yeah. So just them like thinking about each other is creating Nexus events, like just popping off chaos. Is popping off of chaos. I thought that was really cool. And then of course at the end of the scene, Loki tells him the truth. He doesn't believe him, throws him back into his memory loop prison,
or at least says he doesn't believe him.
Of course, right? He says he doesn't believe him, but he's like,
because then that's when Loki's going in. He's saying you're the biggest liar because you're lying to yourself.
Exactly, and I think that's a good point. B-15 shows up, and she's obviously super upset. I had forgotten that she got enchanted 2 episodes ago, and her memory, she remembered something, and you can see that she's like super troubled. Like her whole life is like a lie, right?
Yeah, and if I recall right, I don't think she was enchanted for as long or as deep as C20, so that's probably why her
mind wasn't screwed up, right?
Exactly, wasn't as screwed up, but she knows something happened. Yeah.
So Rensselaer, like you mentioned, Rensselaer and Mobius meet each other. It's kind of a precarious kind of conversation. He swaps the data pads, and he's complete revolutionary at this point, because he tells her something feels off. Does a horrible job lying, and kind of leaves the meeting like 2 drinks, and that's it. And he's like, yeah, I'm just tired, and she's like, that's not. But here's the thing I kind of picked up. Did you pick this up too? Rensselaer and Mobius, or Rensselaer at least has a thing for Mobius, maybe.
There's definitely some sort of relationship there. So who knows what it is, but it's more than just colleagues, right? Or more
so that goes against the comics, right? Because Rensselaer is always in love with Kang, right? Or does she?
Well, there's always a relationship with Kang. Sometimes in one part they're together, in other parts she's like enslaved to him. It's a whole big thing. But yeah, I don't think there's any in the comics. There's nothing between Rensselaer and Mobius.
Okay, so I mean that's it. I love how they change the comics. They just kind of loosely take the things and kind of make it better. So Mobius goes into Sylvie's room. She goes to the Nexus Event, and she says, "What is going on? I remember something at the Rocks cart." And she's basically makes her head glow green, and
Yeah,
she's like,
enchants
I
her again or
remember.
whatever. Yeah, and
And she
shows
gets
her.
all emotional. She's like, I had a life, whatever. And then she brings back B-15's missing, right? So Mobius now believes, goes back to Loki, and then they go into the prison. He's like, okay, you got to trust me. Let's go do something. Let's go blow up the system. And they come
Yeah.
out of the
Well, I
prison
think
gate.
before that, just to note that he used Rensselaer's data pad to kind of see what really did
Right.
happen to
Yes.
C-20, and he saw the interrogation of her where she talked about how it was real and we're all
Mm-hmm.
variants, the TVA is all fake, and then he saw that Rensselaer was part of that, and so I think
Right. So
that
I
was
do
the
have a note for
really
this.
yeah yeah
Good
okay.
point. Here's my comment on that. Does Rensselaer know everything about the TVA? Does she know everybody's a variant, or is she just super scared and she's like, "Oh my god, my reality is crumbling around me. I need to go fix it. I got to do my job."
Yep. I don't know for sure. I think she knows. I think
Okay.
she is aware of basically the whole charade. um, but
Interesting.
she
Okay.
also knows that this is the scenario that she's in now, and she's in power,
Mm-hmm.
and she kind of wants to keep it going. I don't know if she thinks this because this is better than the life she left or what, but I think she, for the most part, maybe she doesn't know. You know, we're getting to the very end. Maybe she doesn't know really what happened,
Mm-hmm.
but I think she knows that they're all at least all the hunters and stuff are variants. I think she knows
Okay.
that.
I mean, yes, I think she might, but I mean, there was a look, right? There's a look
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh snap, like I got to do something,
Yeah,
or like that might have been a look of fear in
it
her
could have been.
too.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know. Is it real? Because what happens is, okay, she confronts. They come out of Mobius and Loki come out of the time loop, and there she
Mm-hmm.
is with a bunch of guards, and she talks. She looks, sad but firm, and prunes Mobius.
Yep.
Boom. And they had a little bit of a dialogue. There's not much there, and
Just that
but
Mobius says that he knows they're all variants, right? So
right. So he's a
she
true
knows he
believer.
knows or whatever, and so she has to prune him.
Question: do we see Mobius again, or is this it for him?
I mean, based on what we saw later, I think he would come back. I think we'll find him. There's still 2 episodes. I can't imagine
Mm-hmm.
he's not in them. Might be a little while. Might not be. That he's right in the next episode. But I think before the end, he's back.
Yeah. I suspect. I mean, at this point, before we get to the last 10 minutes and the post credit scene, and if you're watching this or listening to this right now and you missed the
Pause this.
post credit screen, yep, there's going to be spoilers from here on out.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's literally 5 seconds long, but go back and watch it.
Yeah.
I wish I had brought it up. I would have played it on here, but I don't know if I could play Disney Plus stuff on YouTube. I might get in trouble. Anyway, I probably could. I probably should have done that. That would have been good production, Phil.
Okay.
Thanks for not making me do that.
Well, we want to keep growing, right? It's the chaos
Yes.
and we growth, so we'll have growth in the next time.
Yes. So, in any case, so Mobius is gone. They bring both Sylvie and Loki, and they bring them into the Timekeepers, and it's kind of nuts. They do not look anything like the statues that are all over the place.
Not really, no.
At all, and I thought that was kind of funny. And one of the other things that I thought was rather interesting was that there were other guards inside the room,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, here I am thinking like it's like completely, Wizard of the Oz stuff. You might hear something in a second. I'm going to bring up the final scene. I'm gonna play it.
Okay.
And so there's a big fight scene, and all of a sudden, like, it's just like everybody, Sylvie, Rensselaer gets knocked out. All the other guards are either pruned or gone, and then the two confront the Timekeepers, and they're either laughing or they're kind of playing off one or the other, like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and just
calm
to preface
down.
it, this was able to happen because B-15 showed up and took the restraints off Loki and Sylvie,
Right, yes.
and that enabled this whole thing to go down. Like you said, knocks everybody out, and then they're alone talking to the Timekeepers, and all of a sudden, one of the Timekeepers, the center one, appears a little bit troubled by this and seems to want to negotiate with Sylvie, and says something to the effect of, "You're a child of the Timekeepers, and we can talk through this." And then she says, no, we can't. Throws her sword at him and
Yep.
beheads him. And the head comes rolling down. And she's all ready to fight and what's going on. And then the other timekeepers all just kind of shut down. And then it becomes apparent that they're basically were audio animatronics. And it was the TVA equivalent of the Hall of Presidents. And, it's clear that something larger is at play, or what happens. They're just made like they're not real people that are doing this.
Yeah, so it's literally the man behind the curtain. It's literally Wizard of Oz.
But we don't see the wizard, right? We
Right,
just see,
exactly.
yeah.
But I don't think we were ever going to go see the Wizard this early. We maybe get a glimpse of him at the end of this series. We'll talk about that in a second. So Loki's pruned, Mobius pruned, and I'm thinking to myself at this point, post credit scene, that okay, well, if Loki is gone, this main character is certainly not going to be gone for the last 2 episodes, right? They're going to find a way to either bring him back, and I'm thinking Mobius is going to come back because maybe Loki will go find him in another part of the timeline, or find him, originally or something. So right now, I'm just thinking to myself, like, okay, where's this going? This is a great end. It's a good cliffhanger. Yep. I'm gonna see if this plays. I have the post credit scene. I'm getting a very black screen, and it's not playing for me. Unfortunately, I have to figure out how that is. You can see the screen. It's all black, and the video is not playing whatsoever. You can see my mouse and everything. Okay, so we're not gonna be able to do it. So anyway, the post credit scene, Phil was like, "Don't turn it off." Yeah. Wait, I'm like, I know there's a post.
And just one note before we get to it, it does end though that because Rensselaer had woken up, and that's why she prunes Loki as he's about to sort of express his feelings to Sylvie, but Sylvie is then able to turn the tables and kind of has Rensselaer, captured basically, and tells her, "I want the answers. I want to know what's going on."
Yes,
and then that's when it goes to the credits.
That's interesting. I can't take a screenshot of Disney Plus. It goes blank. That is super interesting. Like even in screen snap, we're doing live production on the screen. I don't know if this is compelling. So,
talking about one more thing, the Wizard of Oz and seeing behind the curtain.
Right, exactly. Okay, it doesn't even work. I can't even take a screenshot of that. That's funny. Anyway, so we go to the post-credits screen. It's Loki. He's lying on the ground. He's breathing heavy, and he's like, "Am I? What is this? Wait, is this?"
He says, "Is this hell? Am I dead?
Am I dead?" And then you hear a voice saying, "Not yet. You will be unless you come with us." And then it kind of pans up, and there's 3 people staring down at him,
and an alligator,
and an alligator. So it's a African American Loki with a hammer. I've seen that hammer before. It's kind of like a hammer, but it's got like the 2 like little, kind of like darker kind of antler horns coming out the top of it. There's a child Loki, looks like he's like 13 years old or something else like that, holding an alligator with Loki horns on it. And then old man Loki with, as you pointed out, and I didn't pick this up, the original comic book costume on it.
Yep.
All standing with a devastated New York City behind them.
Yeah, you can see the Stark Building or Avengers Tower on the right side decimated, so it looks like New York got destroyed, whether it was from the Battle of New York from Avengers, which is an interesting parallel to this scene because the ending of Avengers is Loki on the ground looking up at the group of the Avengers while looking down at him. And now this scene is Loki on the ground looking up at the group of Lokis. So is Loki going to form his own like Loki Avengers?
That's interesting. I did not realize that. Did you get that? Did you figure that out on your own? I have to give you credit if you have, because that's amazing.
So it looked familiar, the way he was looking up at them, but I have to give credit to Screen Crush, who showed the scenes side by side when I looked at it, and that made it
channel.
Yeah, that made it very obvious. It was like, that looks familiar, and then you see there like, yep, that's where it's from.
So the question then becomes, if these generic weapons of the TVA are just quote unquote pruning people, you would assume they work the same for everybody. Does now everybody that gets pruned gets sent to somewhere?
Yeah, is it somewhere? Is it the same place? Is it or do they all go to back to where they were, or the timeline they would have been in, or one of their timelines? Is Mobius riding a jet ski somewhere? Like, I don't know what's going on.
Well, that's the thing. Now you give hope. Like everybody that gets like kind of pruned, do they go to like a purgatory? Do they go to like a, people think that this is all happening in the quantum realm. So are they somewhere else in the quantum realm? Are they in like a garbage planet type of thing, like in Ragnarok? I don't know. So the opening scene of next week is going to be really interesting. We're going to find out, hopefully, they're not going to do a thing where like we tease this and then there's a whole episode of
not much
Sylvie doing something or whatever. And I hope that, because there's only 2 episodes left, I hope they go like right for it and
keep it going.
Don't slow down, right? Okay, so prediction time, Phil. So that was the end of the episode. I think that's got to be like the second best episode so far of the 4.
Okay.
If I had to guess, I think probably the first one was good, and this is probably on par with the second episode. Obviously, the third episode no one liked. But what do you think?
I mean, my initial reaction, it might be just because it's fresh in my mind, but I think it might be my favorite, just with how much happened and how many. I think it advanced further than I thought we'd get at this point, and it kind of like threw me for a loop, especially with the timekeepers being, audio animatronics. I think I don't know, like, it just really, and then I love a good post-credit scene, so I think that always gets it up a notch in my mind. So now, I'm intrigued.
Now, one of the things I said is like, okay, now the timekeepers need to be an attraction in Walt Disney World, and you of course came up with the perfect idea of them replacing the Hall of Presidents, and I wholeheartedly agree with timekeeper animatronics kind of crashing down on all the presidents. Like, this is not real. This is our reality. What do you think happens next? It's prediction time. So what do you think happens next?
So I do think Loki forms like these Loki Avengers, and they've probably already formed some plan and saying, we need to get back, or how we're going to handle this. I assume that Sylvie's going to get some answers out of Rensselaer, and we'll find out how, our question earlier, how much does she really know? And that'll kind of set things up. But I assume we got to find out more about who really made the TVA, who made the timekeepers. I mean, in the comics, they were kind of made at the end of time to go back and just ensure that it was kind of like just self-preservation, and it was just a loop. So I don't know if they're gonna start mentioning Kang the Conqueror, or, that's the big name that everyone's throwing out there, to kind of set things up. Yeah. Well, will it be the Mephisto, or will it actually happen? I guess we'll see. So I don't know. I mean, somehow it's got to get tied back together, and Loki, I think, with his Loki Avengers, gets back to the TVA. But there's 2 episodes left, right? There's not just one. Usually in these Disney Plus shows, the last episode is kind of gathering everybody together, and then the last episode is the big fight. But it seems like he already kind of has his crew. So I don't know if it's just building them up more, figuring out what happened to Mobius, and then they have the big fight in episode 6. I don't know.
I'm going to predict that Loki's going to be confused. He's going to figure something out, and he's going to figure out where he is or when he is, and uses that information to escape. Right? I don't think he's going to form anything. I think he's just going to do some information gathering and use these guys' experience to say, hey, this is how this place works. Oh, I know where I am. Maybe he finds an Infinity Stone or something, and he escapes, because he uses that to get back with Sylvie, because obviously he's in love and wants to get back with her.
Obviously, they get back together, yeah.
So Sylvie has Rensselaer at quote-unquote gunpoint at this point. We leave her, and she says, you need to tell me everything. So I think we're going to get big hints on how much Rensselaer knows. Yeah. Maybe she knows everything. Maybe she knows nothing. We don't know. But I think we're going to get a little bit of insight into her character, hopefully. So what do you think Sylvie's motivation is now? She always wanted to destroy the timekeepers. Now, obviously, she destroyed them because they were machines. So. Yep. Is she going to want to basically do the same thing? Like, okay, tell me who is really in charge. And she's going to say, I don't know. And this is where we're going to find out if Rensselaer was scared of the truth in that scene, or she knows everything and it's going to be now coercion and going forward. So I think we're going to find out at least hints of that. And then maybe I would expect Loki's escape. Like, the whole episode is him finding out where he is, which in turn gives us insight on how the whole TVA and timeline work, right? So we'll get like the kind of backwoods, workings of everything, I guess. And then I don't think Sylvie's going to escape much. I think we might get a little hint of what she's finding out. And then the last episode is Loki escapes, and they meet up and they find out more information, and then they go for, the shutdown of the whole TVA for real, and probably fail because they're not going to take down this big huge entity in a 6-episode non-movie thing on Disney Plus.
I guess so. And then we'll see where it leads. If it leads more directly into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, or I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But
all right,
I think episode 6 is going to be really interesting to see what happens with it.
Give me a chance. What do you think is the chance of the multiverse being created in the next 2 episodes? Good, I think it's poor.
I think it's high. But it might be like in the last 5 minutes or something like that, and it's there, but we don't really know a lot about it. But I think I would be surprised if there isn't a multiverse by the end of it, but it might be at the very end.
Okay, so TVA is destroyed. This is the last scene, episode 6. Something happens. We don't see who's in charge. If it's Kang or what, maybe we get the name. I don't know. That person flees. TVA is all alone. It gets completely destroyed. And in the chaos, Loki and Sylvie kiss. Cut to credits. Post-episode scene is going to be a monitor that's slightly cracked in the rubble, and they're going to see the line go past the red line or something else like that. And that's where it ends.
Maybe. It could be
right?
That. It could be that, yeah. And
we're like, oh, what happens next? And then do we find in Ant-Man and the Wasp? I don't know, but it creates a conversation, a buzz around the MCU that I think that people at Disney are going to love, because it's just
absolutely
create endless YouTube channels creating their theories of where everything.
There'll be what happens next and what leads into this and who's that.
Analyzing a glare of a window being edited out of a video on a tweet. All right, we've gone super long. This is a classic Mandalorian season 2 episode without me complaining. So we're going to end it here, guys. Stay tuned for our weekly show this week. Hopefully we'll get it done on... we might not do it on a Sunday because of the 4th of July. Maybe we'll do it on the 5th anyway. So maybe 3 Monday shows in a row. See what's going on as far as our plans and everything else. That being said, guys, have a great week. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, head to our YouTube channel and subscribe and like, please. I know we're getting lots of more downloads than views on YouTube, so there's plenty of you out there that haven't liked our video on YouTube.
So please go and do that. Tell your friends, all that stuff.
Makes me sad. Yes, share and like and all this other stuff. Again, have a great night, guys. Loki's awesome, and can't wait for episode 5. Take care, all.